Thank you all so much for allowing me to participate. I'm truly honored. Much of what I'm going to speak about relates probably a little bit more to what's happening in the United States, and things are crazy in the United States. I recently spoke in Canada, and I asked what it was like being above our northern border, and they said it's like living in an apartment above a meth lab, and they're nervous about what's been going on here. And we're doing a lot of discussing about um, why don't facts change minds? And it inspired the presentation that you were about to see. And I hope it spurs some conversations in your own life. Let's begin. We have always been told, at least where I'm from, that dogs are colorblind. This is not true, and I found it fascinating. Dogs actually have a much more compressed color range of vision. Their eyes evolved for distance and for motion, for hunting, and they usually hunt in low light at dusk and dawn. So they did not need to locate bright fruits and flowers and that kind of thing. This is my hunting dog. This is Linus, a 7-pound rescue dog. He is fast. He is furious. He is a descendant of the wolf. And I was relieved when I found out that Linus does have color in his life. On the right side is what dogs see. This is a dichromatic image, and the reds and the greens have been compressed into a mix of blues and yellows. It's fascinating. And wow, you say, I learned something new today. I'm going to alter how I think and talk about this moving forward. When I was a child, I was told that if you swallow chewing gum, it will stick inside your stomach for 7 years. It won't digest for over half a decade. And so they were obviously trying to keep us from swallowing our chewing gum. But that actually is not true. It is a myth. It passes through like all other digested food. Oh, that's new information. I changed my mind. It's a myth that drinking coffee dehydrates you. We've long been told where I'm from that you don't want to drink coffee if you are dehydrated because it will dehydrate you further. Well, caffeine is a diuretic, and that does increase urine production, but still, coffee is almost all water. So you are hydrating as you are caffeinating. As a coffee lover, this is welcome news. I am most pleased. That's knowledge that I needed. There is no conclusive proof that sugar causes hyperactivity in kids. There are a lot of parents who believe that if they give their kids a candy bar or sugary cereal, that it's going to make their children go crazy with too much energy. That's false. Now, there are many parents who will hear this fact and they will begin to resist. The mindset starts to change. They're sitting forward in their chairs. Why are we reacting differently than we reacted to the colorblind dogs and the gum and the coffee? And yet, the statement is true. Despite what parents think, there is no conclusive evidence that sugar causes kids to act differently. That hyperactivity connection was made in one study that was done 50 years ago involving one doctor who removed sugar from a child's diet. That has never been conclusively replicated. Sugary foods are part of other environmental triggers that might be responsible for hyperactivity, and there may be some children that have sensitivities to sweet foods, but the sugar hyperactivity connection exists mostly here, not in science. Uh-oh. Many parents might be saying, no, no, no. No, he's full of crap. I don't buy it. I've seen it, right? I've experienced it. He's just wrong. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at some other long held beliefs that probably don't get us all hot and bothered. We have some people have thought that blood is blue when it's inside our bodies. And then when you're cut or the blood is exposed to the air, it then turns red. Well, that's false. In fact, what you and I are seeing is a trick of light. Red goes deeper, the color red, it goes deeper and it gets scattered into the skin and the fat. Blue gets bounced back more to our eyes, and that's why blood will appear blue when it's seen inside our veins. It's not actually blue. Polygraph tests, lie detector tests are a lie. They don't work. This is debunked 19th century technology. You cannot determine lies just by measuring blood pressure, breathing, pulse rate, perspiration. It's false. We see this in films and on television. The government and police departments have actually used this thinking that lie detectors work. According to a former National Security Association analyst named Russell Tice, even if the needle told a real story, you could fool the polygraph with just a few simple exercises. You can bite your tongue, you can distract yourself, mental arithmetic, you can daydream, you can alter how you breathe, you can even tighten your rectum. And there are exercises that have been used for people who want to fool a polygraph. They teach a former CIA guy, I forget his name. He was on Penn and Teller broadcast, and he was showing how you can sit in a chair and then tense and release your sphincter muscles, and you can fool the polygraph. I will leave those exercises to you, but I know you're trying it right now. I just know. I know you're sitting in your chair and you're trying it. Okay. It is false that you should never wake a sleepwalker. We've often been told somebody's walking around in their sleep. Do not disturb. That's false. It's actually more likely that a sleepwalker will get injured if they pinball around the place. The Academy of Sleep Medicine advises gently guide them back to bed. But no, we do not want sleepers walking stairs, leaving their houses. Some have even driven cars to other locations. Yes, that's a bad idea, and it's nothing that we want. Okay? It is a myth that touching a baby bird will make a parent abandon the baby. Birds are heavily bonded to their young. That whole idea, the myth that if you touch a little baby bird and the parents will abandon it, that links back to a myth that birds can detect human scent and they are primarily scent driven. Actually, most birds have a limited sense of smell. So we shouldn't be bothering the babies, but if a chick falls out of the nest, it's okay to reach down and put the chick back in the nest. You are not dooming it to a short life of abandonment. Here's one that's hot in the United States. This is a hot button. Monosodium glutamate, MSG, in food is not bad for you. We are terrified of MSG here in the States. It is a flavor enhancer often added to restaurant foods, canned vegetables, soups, deli meats, and other foods. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has said it's safe, right? It is safe. There's no discernible link between MSG and all the symptoms that people say MSG causes: headaches, sweating, tightness of the skin, numbness, tingling, burning, fluttering heart rate, chest pain, nausea, weakness. There's no clear or really evident link between MSG and those symptoms. In fact, in laboratory tests, subjects responded the same to MSG as they did to placebos. There is no reason that restaurants, and especially Asian restaurants in the United States, will put signs like this on the door. No MSG. They're trying to get people to come in. It's not a thing. Now, if I say that to somebody who has long believed MSG is dangerous and it affected them in some way, and they just know it, right? Have they changed their opinion about it? Let's go deeper. MSG is not just in Chinese food. It's commonly added to canned vegetables, ketchup, mustard, salad dressing, deli meat, potato chips, soup. We eat it all the time without even realizing. Glutamate rather, is an amino acid, and that's present in almost all of our foods. Monosodium Glutamate is an isolated and purified form of it. Glutamates are found naturally in many cheeses, some fruits and vegetables, chicken, shrimp, shiitake mushrooms have them, broccoli, walnuts, cabbage. MSG increases saliva. That improves taste. It can be a bit salty. In fact, that's one of the reasons that it is a flavor enhancer, but still, it only has about 1/3 of the amount of sodium as ordinary table salt. So, unless you have a significant, specific, and very rare sensitivity to MSG, you would not feel any health effects until you had had maybe 3 grams or more of it on an empty stomach. That's about 6 times what's in most foods. And your symptoms would still be mild and they would quickly disappear. This is a scientific finding. Now, this is where everyone stands up and applauds me. Thank you, Seth. Thank you for this fresh perspective rooted in science. Let's go out and get some Asian food. Let's get some chicken chow mein together, right? Is that the response that we hear when we have these conversations? No. The same people who heard that look at me and say, MSG has shrunk Seth Andrews' brain, right? He's totally off base. I still refuse to put MSG in my body because I know that it's harmful. Well, what's that about? Why the pushback? Why so indignant? Even irritated? Oh, you want to see irritation? Watch this one. Detox diets are a total scam. Detox is not a medical term in terms of diet. Detox is a term that was stolen from legitimate addiction recovery programs to sell the myth that you can eat and drink toxins that have accumulated in your system. By the way, have you noticed those toxins? They're never defined, ever. The liver is our natural detox machine. Detox by diet is a bogus claim. It is made by an unregulated $50 billion a year detox product industry. Oh, Seth's wrong. That's something that big pharma or big FDA, big food would want us to believe. I still believe detox diets are good. I still believe that's a thing. They still work. People aren't budging. Well, what's that about? Some of this relates to something called the reiteration effect, and I've borrowed a few slides from the good folks over at thinkingispower.com. They do a lot of wonderful work about changing minds, including our own, understanding how the brain works and biases and all of these influencing factors, emotion. And, if you ever see somebody who says they're not emotional or they don't think emotionally, they already just have. Okay. But the reiteration effect in this cartoon has two people speaking. One says Napoleon was short. Oh, that's interesting. Napoleon's shortness complex was massive. Did you know Napoleon was short? And then the final person says, you probably heard that a lot, but it's a myth. But we tend to believe false information the more often we are exposed to it. By the way, it is not true that Napoleon was short. I grew up believing that he was, and that his lack of height made him a mockery throughout Europe. That's a myth. It's a total falsehood. The inch, as measured in France at that time, was slightly shorter than the inch that was used in England. Historians say Napoleon was actually perhaps an inch or two taller than the average Frenchman at that time. He was maybe 5'5", right? 5'5" or 5'6" in American measurements. But why had I assumed that and always believed it instead of taking 3 minutes to find out for sure? I just accepted it as fact. Here's one that really drives people crazy. Mother Teresa was not a good person. Now, when I say this, people go from that's interesting on all the other subjects to what? They say, how dare you? How dare you speak ill of this saintly woman, right? She is so linked to public notions of purity and goodness. Why? Why do people get so upset? And then when I have these conversations, I follow up with this little exercise. I will ask the indignant person, I'll say, all right, fine. Name 3 facts about Mother Teresa that don't include where she was born or the fact that she was Catholic. Just tell me anything about it. Anything. Give me a single specific piece of information you know about Mother Teresa, right? Nobody. I have not found one person who can give me a specific about who she was or what she did. And so I follow up and I begin to bring facts. Did you know that Mother Teresa promoted rigorous poverty? She wanted people to be poor. Meanwhile, she was enjoying the high life, private jets and celebrity perks and big money that was often received from criminals, even mass murderers. She believed that suffering was good because Christ, he suffered with his passion on the cross. Then the suffering of us, especially the poor, was our way of being Christ-like. She founded the suspiciously funded Missionaries of Charity, also known as Homes for the Dying. You'll find these in Calcutta and all around. And these places are horrible, often horribly unsanitary. They're known for neglect and abuse, people handcuffed to their beds, managed, even injected with medicines by non-doctors, using needles that were washed in a sink. I mean, it's just terrible. In fact, you should check out an organization called Stop the Missionaries of Charity because they do a lot of exposing of these horrible places that were founded and managed in a way by Mother Teresa. And the miracle, quote unquote, miracle that the Catholic Church used to give her sainthood was the healing of a woman named Monica Bezra. Well, what we didn't know, what the church didn't tell anybody, is that the healing of Monica Bezra took place while Monica was seeing doctors to have her condition treated. And once Mother Teresa was awarded sainthood, the church abandoned Monica. They simply hung her out to dry, right? Now, if I mention this stuff, she lived like a rock star. She thought suffering was great. She was part of a facility that handcuffed people to their beds and chairs. Sainthood was just marketing. If I say that stuff, very few want to hear it. They love the idea of this charitable, noble, grandmotherly saint. They've adopted Mother Teresa. They've adopted her into their hearts. And now they commit themselves to keeping their perception of her safe, right? This is a defensive posture. It's a closed system posture. Here's one. Americans love to say this. America is the greatest country in the world. America, we're number one, right? So you and I then check the statistics against other nations in basic metrics. Switzerland overall has been ranked number one. Then we've got Canada, Sweden, Australia. I mean, the United States, and I do. I love my country and I want the U.S. to fix itself. But we lose in almost every major metric. The economy, nope. Quality of life, not even close. Crime rate, healthcare, education, cultural influence. Statista has done some research, and they found that the United States ranks first in 2 categories: military spending and national pride. Meaning, we are number one at saying we're number one. I mean, it just blows your mind, right? Talk about, but if you tell someone that there were so many other free, wonderful nations that enjoy so much good stuff and are doing things better than we are. If you say that to a proud, fist-waving American, are they interested in the data, or do they immediately puff their chests out and say, no, right? Well, they're defending. They're not listening. They are sending. They are not receiving. They are a closed system. There's something happening in the brain. Another couple of examples quickly. The COVID vaccine is safe and has saved the lives of millions. Now, I know you are likely already on top of this. You take this journey, you've had these discussions, you are very much pro science. But we can all think, at least I can, where I live, and I live in an extremely conservative, extremely religious, and extremely conspiratorial part of the country. And if I say COVID, the vaccine is safe, COVID is a legitimate danger, it harms and kills, and we need to get vaccinated. If I say that, there are people who would shut down and leave. They just walk out of the room. Okay, fine. Why don't I bring the data? Why don't I bring the facts that will change the minds? The Center for Disease Control reports you cannot get COVID from the COVID vaccine. We hear this sometimes with the influenza vaccine. If you take the flu shot, now you get sick, you have the flu. That's not possible, right? There is no live virus, and the vaccines don't shed their components. That's a myth. The vaccine components themselves are safe. In fact, you will find many of those ingredients in foods, fats and sugars and salts. The COVID vaccine won't damage your DNA. I was going to say something else that was profane, but okay, it won't jack up. It won't mess up your DNA. There are people in my country who believe that you will mutate if you take the COVID vaccine. The vaccine never enters the cell nucleus, which is where DNA lives. It's impossible. It will not make women infertile. In fact, pregnant women can and should get vaccinated. Not only will the COVID vaccine not microchip you so that you can be tracked by the government or Bill Gates or whoever, and this is a thing where I'm from. Some people really believe that the COVID vaccine has a hidden tracker. And then I guess they want to watch you sit on the toilet and get the mail. I mean, why in the world? Plus, they're carrying a cell phone, which has immediate satellite connection wherever they go. The vaccine contains no metals that could even produce an electromagnetic field. You have not been tagged so that you can be monitored as you walk around, at least not with the vaccine. Now, we are seeing something here beyond the reiteration effect. We are seeing the tattooing of personal belief and opinion onto our identities, right? It's not just what we think, it's who we are. And COVID here has become hugely political. It's a statement about us. Accepting or rejecting the realities around COVID have become a statement about who we are and who is a danger to who we are. Resistors and disbelievers have often been primed. They see an evil scheme everywhere they look. It's all an attack on their freedoms. And we love to scream that word in the United States. Freedom, hashtag freedom. I'm free. They wear t-shirts. Freedom, 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 freedom. As if we have like a monopoly on freedom. As if there aren't other wonderful nations around the world that enjoy freedom. But this is something that Americans like to say, that just is ours. We trademarked freedom, right? And even if they thought COVID was a real danger, and many don't, even if they thought so, they think the more important thing is pushing back on vaccine mandates. No one's going to tell me what to do. No one's going to mandate a vaccine for me. I'm free, right? For many, the United States means rugged individualism. So this idea of collectivist values and working together as a society, that sounds an awful lot like socialism. And you know who socialism represents? The Soviet Union, right? People still talk about, right, and we consider Russia to be a tremendously problematic place, rightly so. But I mean, we think about socialism, then it's all communism and it's all essentially Soviet Russia. So government mandates, requirements equals tyranny. My identity as a free American says absolutely not, never, never, never. Now I'm going to show you kind of an intense looking photo here. Smallpox killed over 500 million people in the 20th century alone. Smallpox, one of the most contagious and deadliest diseases ever known to humankind. English scientist Dr. Edward Jenner proved that a small dose of cowpox infection would inoculate people against smallpox. Within 5 years, his vaccine had gone global and it was saving lives. But what happened? Anti-vaxxers freaked out. They flipped and they declared war on Dr. Jenner. Here is a depiction. This is dated back to 1803 of Dr. Jenner inoculating people. Now, it's hard to see, but what happens when he gives them the shot is they start transforming into cows. So as he is injecting the tiny little bit of cowpox into them to inoculate against smallpox, the anti-vaccine crowd started to publish literature that said, if you take the shot, he is going to turn you into a bovine. And this is like 200 years ago, okay? Here is an editorial cartoon. It had children being fed to a diseased cow-like monster. The cockpox solution was coming for their kids, you know? So this is not new. Fear, misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, science, denial, public endangerment, right? Does that sound familiar? This was a 19th century movement. This was a resistance culture, and being anti-vax for smallpox was an identity. It was who we are. The late 1800s saw electricity protesters. Thomas Edison was pitching electric power. Resistors came and they said, this is hazardous. Electricity is disruptive and dangerous. And in this editorial cartoon, we see depicted people being electrocuted or running for their lives. You can't force electricity on us. We will hold to our kerosene lanterns and our torches, right? Here's another one. In the United States, new seatbelt requirements met rabid opposition in the 1950s, and Free America protested. They said, these belts, they're more dangerous than a car crash. And more importantly, no one's going to force me, the free American, to wear a belt, right? Being unrestrained. It's not just what I think. It's who I am. Identity beliefs often lead to false equivalent claims, right? I'm standing up for my right to not wear a mask, just like Rosa Parks, the civil rights champion, fought for her rights. Masks take away freedom, like slavery. Vaccine mandates are like the experiments that Nazis did on the Jews. The unvaccinated are treated like blacks were treated during segregation. Vaccine passports are like the Star of David the Jews had to wear during the Holocaust, right? This is a false equivalence claim. But the message is, I'm resisting the man. Mandates are slavery. No one shall enslave me. So against the persecutors, I, the righteous rebel, I will cry freedom. Oh, what a rush to be the hero in your own story and to join tribes of fellow heroes. The more you are opposed, the more you are right and righteous. How do you feel about this guy? I used to buy into the boy genius myth, you know. I used to think he was the Tony Stark of the real world. I am not a fan. You know, the Tesla's a nice car and SpaceX is doing some cool stuff, but not Elon. Elon, I'm amused by a sticker that some people are starting to put on their Teslas. They're putting a sticker on that says, I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy. I feel this, right? But the EV, the electric vehicle, I think is cool. It's a cool, and beyond the Tesla. the Hyundai Ioniq and the Ford Mach-E, the Chevy Bolt. I know there are many European versions and others around the world. And great. Yeah. I'm not kidding myself that driving an EV automatically makes me like this guy, Mr. Hugely Environmental. Fossil fuels still drive the grid that charges the car. So we're still, using coal and other mined fuels at this point. And we're still trying to figure out lithium mining and the lifespan of batteries and how to recycle them and dispose of them. But all those are legitimate. This is messy. But beyond the discussions about gas versus electric cars, I have noticed something very interesting where I live. In the oil and gas state of Oklahoma, there seem to be a lot of Oklahomans who apparently equate car and truck exhaust with American freedom. It's not just what they think, it's who they are. And so I meet this guy on the sidewalk and he's driving around. He's got an F-150 truck and he's got an Eagle decal on the window and a lift kit so it's risen up off the road. And I start talking about electric cars and I watch his reaction, which from my perspective seems to be this kind of thinking. No. I'm a car guy. I'm a gas car guy because many people believe that the gas car is an American invention. It's not. The German inventor Carl Benz first patented the gas vehicle back in 1885. But tell me that these trucks don't look like America, right? Tell me this red, white, and blue doesn't. How about this one? This is a beauty. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that people will drive around sometimes in my country. Here's some other ones. We got the flag on there. There's an eagle, copy of the Constitution. You can read "We the People." And of course, there's Donald Trump giving the thumbs up, right? This is an identity. This is not somebody just enjoying their vehicle. This is an identity. Many will flat out tell you that EVs are a slippery slope to tyranny. Electric means environmentalism, which is Biden or Harris. That means emissions, laws, and restrictions. That's government oppression. That's tyranny, an attack on my freedom. If you notice anything about these freedom convoys, do you see any Teslas in there? Of course not. Now, here's a scenario that some people are going to call a stereotype. But being from Oklahoma, USA, I'm going to toss it out there, okay? Once I see a guy with this decal, and we see these in T-shirts and whatnot, I can probably tell you 20 other things about the driver. Would they ever buy an EV? No. What's their political party? Conservative Republican, right? Not a Democrat. What is their ethnicity? Best guess, white guy. Their religion? Almost certainly Christian. What's their favorite news channel? The conservative propaganda channel, Fox News. Did they get the COVID vaccine? Don't you bet on it. Do they accept the science of climate change? No. Reproductive choice, they are anti-abortion. Are they a gun owner? They probably have a pistol in the glove box or under the seat. How do they feel about immigrants, especially those at the border? Hey, you know what? You can use my gun to shoot the immigrants. Nationalized health care. What's your opinion? Uh-oh, we're back to socialism. Again, these are guesses, and maybe they are stereotypes, but I think it's legitimate to observe and address trends and tendencies. I'd like to say I've got enough Oklahoma equity. I thought I had 45 minutes. I'm sorry. To make the observation that this will likely be a white Christian nation, free market, oil and gas, love it or leave it, American conservative. Weird about LGBT people, distrustful of foreigners, would love to bomb most of the Middle East, probably owning an equal number of Bibles and firearms. And this is an identity. And it's a response to another identity group. I'm hearing a gentleman in my ear that says I need to be finished. Forgive me, I'm about 60% through. I'll try to wrap it up early for you. I'm not making an equivalence argument. I think one group has more merit than another. But Black Lives Matter is an example of an identity group or an identity belief in my country that we feel very strongly about, condemning racism and abuse within law enforcement and the culture. And the claim is, and it's true, that in this country, Black people face greater danger against police brutality. This is a system that needs to be fixed. The bad cops should be fired or prosecuted or both, and education and our procedures need to evolve. We identify as agents of equality. So in the wake of Black Lives Matter, the thin blue line symbol has become a tribal response. It says, no, you vilified the police. The men and women in blue need our support. Blue lives matter. And the people in blue, the men and women in blue, that's what we call our law enforcement, our police. And it's interesting, this symbol has become the darling of many white supremacist groups. The Back the Blue identity group makes a blanket statement that we stand behind police, period, and that Black Lives Matter protests against police racism are a betrayal of all the men and women in uniform. This is binary thinking, tribal thinking. We are just, they are unjust. It's us versus them. Trying to think of exactly what I can skip here. I'll do one more and then wrap it up. This is part of what makes it flat earthers so frustrating to talk to. You and I present the facts, basic science, and yet flat earth is an identity. It is a culture. It's a family unit. So the more attacked these people feel, the more they dig in and the more they shut down. There is a documentary on Netflix called Behind the Curve. Flat earthers set up an experiment with a laser to prove that the earth was flat. The experiment failed. The laser proved that the earth had a curvature. Did they change their minds? No, they said, we need to make a different experiment. This is the 2018 Flat Earth International Conference at Crown Place Airport Convention Center in Denver. The MC told the crowd, I am not ashamed of ridicule. I am not ashamed of mockery. I am not ashamed of insult. And the crowd cheered. It's interesting what he said. I am not ashamed. And this rings familiar. People who believe 9/11 was an inside job believe it and say, I'm not ashamed. UFOs are real and aliens live among us. I am not ashamed. Chemtrails are mind-controlled drugs dropped on citizens by the government. I believe it. I am not ashamed. There's a cabal of evil Democrat blood-drinking Satan worshipers who are attacking us all. I believe and I am not ashamed. We are a Christian nation founded by Christians for Christians. I believe and I am not ashamed. Actually, I'll leave this one in. I used to think I could walk into the room and refute this stuff, but the amygdala is the part of our brain that processes emotion. It is the center for physical threat response, fight, flight, freeze. Now, when we are presented with an ideological threat that hits our identity, that same part of the brain fires up, which explains why people either blow up, freeze, or walk out. So if we walk in and we say on this highly charged issue, you are wrong, people feel attacked. They're put off, angry, offended, fight, flight, freeze. People won't change their minds if they feel attacked. They need to have a safe place. They need to be made to feel like it's okay. And I think in many ways we will benefit by giving our fellow travelers on this planet just a little bit more grace. And that's hard to do, but we try to value their humanity and respect their humanity and understand that so many of us have had bad ideas. All of us, in fact, have had terrible ideas. We can all be creatures of bias and emotion and unreason, and we have to make it safe for people to be able to explore these complicated places without feeling like we're beating them over the head with a baseball bat. Tribes can be a wonderful thing where we come together. Today's a great example of us as a group, a meeting of our people. But tribes can also insulate people, and we have to make a safe place where they can walk out of that zone, beyond that boundary, and not feel like they're going to take it in the teeth. There's a lot more to this presentation, probably another 30 slides, but I'll go ahead and leave it here. And I'll be giving this speech in its entirety at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And the video for that will probably release a little later on this year, will be available on my channel. But this is just a beginning, a first few steps into why and how you and I have walked into rooms, presented data, and found ourselves dealing with how they feel instead of what they think. It's because you and I are evolved, emotional bags of meat, and we are often responding emotionally in terms of personality, identity, values, protecting something rather than being willing to evolve our thinking. That just makes us human. We can all be guilty, and I think being aware of it is the first step to trying to overcome it. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to all of you today. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much. And we have some questions for you. We used Slido, and maybe we will have some questions from the audience as well. And of course, as we are a skeptics meeting, here the first question is a skepticism about your slides. So, the electricity carton, wasn't it also due to lax safety practices then, when power lines often touched telegraph lines and killing servicemen?
That's very possible. It's very possible that that's a shade to the protest that I wasn't aware of or that I did not include. You bet. But I do stand by the angle that people who are comfortable resist change, and often we resist the evolution of our thinking when something is familiar. But I think that's a great point, and it's something I would like to dig into further when the conversation's done here today. Something I might be able to add before I speak at the University of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you for the anonymous.
Did you see that? Did you see I just evolved my thinking? Like I just changed, literally, instead of freaking out, I said, oh, I might be wrong, or I might need to evolve this or expand this. That's an exercise I've been working on. Go ahead. Forgive me. Go ahead.
What do you think? Why such widely accepted myths as sugar causes hyperactivism are not being scientifically challenged?
We live in a culture here in the United States, at least, which is what I'm limited to speaking about, where, especially in religious areas, people have been programmed, brainwashed to distrust science and scientists. It's tragic. When I was a devout Christian for 3 decades, and when I was being raised, we were told that those secular scientists, they are unable to see the supernatural because they are only interested in the natural. And many of them they want to kill God. They want to remove your religion, and they want to worship in a secular religion called the religion of science. And so what we have in this country is a programmed, really a baked-in distrust of experts. Don't let the experts fool you. Go do your own research, which for many means browsing whatever conspiracy theory website will validate what they already think. There's a saying, do I want to be right, or do I want to be proven right? Those are 2 different things. So the short answer is that we are a culture that has been primed to see scientists as having an agenda to kill God and to control people. And once you've got people distrustful, then you've got real problems.
Okay, thank you. What would you say, which myth or pseudoscience claim is the most dangerous?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I could distill it down to one. I will cheat and give you a few. First of all, I think one of the most dangerous myths, and I don't know if it's an identity myth, but we have a myth, a belief that we were born better. Americans are often programmed to think that we are the greatest because we are American, right? But why are we American? This is an accident of birth. It's just an accident. It's just where we happen to pop out of the womb. And so, through no merit, nothing we've said or done, we have embraced this idea that we don't really care what the rest of the world does. All that matters is what happens within these borders. And in fact, we believe that so much, we're going to build the walls even higher. And for many, not certainly, there's a huge swath of this country that's like me. We are more liberal, progressive, we're more humanist, and we see all of us as citizens of the world, not just of a nation. But part of this isolationist mentality is the rejection of the fact that we are all related. The rejection of evolution, the hard, overwhelming science of evolution. We are all related, not just to each other, but to the entire living world. We are all Africans. We all came from and descended from and or originated at the same place. That lack of acceptance of the science of human evolution has fed into this idea that people are better based on their geography, perhaps even their skin color. And I find that one of the most dangerous,
Thank you very much. For me, as a humanist, this answer is very, very pleasant. If facts don't change minds, why do most skeptic and atheist YouTubers still focus on debating, proving wrong, and similar entertainment to preach to the choir?
This is a great question, and it allows me to draw a circle around something. When I'm speaking about not using facts to change minds, I'm speaking about one-on-one exchanges, eye to eye, voice to voice, face to face. When I'm speaking on the larger stage, the macro stage, that's different. Here's an example. I was a person who was dissatisfied with his faith. I was 37 years old, still a Christian, but I just knew something was wrong. And I watched a debate online between Christopher Hitchens and a Jewish rabbi named Shmuley Boteach. And I expected, I'm not Jewish, but I thought, well, the rabbi's got this. Yeah, sorry, if anybody knows the Bible, it's the rabbi. And at the end of that 90 minutes, Christopher Hitchens was not soft-spoken about religion. He went hard at religion. But at the end, I thought, that guy made better sense than the religious guy defending the Bible. The difference was, and remains whenever you see these public debates, is if I'm watching, but I'm watching from a distance, from this side of the audience, from that side of a computer screen, I am still in a place where I'm safe. You haven't come after me personally. And I think that's the difference. If I'm in a room with you, and I throw data points at you, you shut down. But if I'm having the discussion in a more public forum, people who are curious, and this happens all the time, we're not just preaching to the choir. People are Googling atheist, secular, they're trying to figure it out, they're deconstructing. They find these channels, mine and others, and they will watch from the shadows in total safety. And what they hear, even the harder criticisms and the presentation of facts, that actually helps them and gives them permission to say, maybe I'm not crazy after all. And mostly, too, I think another angle is that it's important to correct the record. And I think doing so on the larger stage does have great utility.
Okay, thank you for your answers and for being here, and have a good day.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.